Hey, deserving listeners, The Ultimatum, Season 2. Let's see what happens.
Antonio.
My ex.
Break up, gets back together, break up, get back together, constantly.
Mm-hmm.
You've had other boyfriends. Why do you keep going back to Antonio?
I have no idea.
Okay, interesting. So we're learning that Antonio and Roxanne have broke up many times. It's hard to know what that means exactly, but it's not a great sign. But, who knows?
He was pretty cool with, living in a cave and gaming all day. That was his vibe. But, Antonio he was my best friend.
Okay, interesting. That does shed some light on Roxanne's complaints about Antonio. I'm looking at my notes. She was saying that he didn't have ambition, and that could mean specifically all he does is play video games all day. And that's an increasing phenomenon. I don't know if I want to call it a problem necessarily, but where 30 years ago you wouldn't necessarily see marriages with that problem, but today you do. Sometimes both people play video games all day. There are couples who play video games together all day or separately all day. So it's not, stereotypically it's a husband thing, but certainly it isn't all the time. But I have worked with couples with this complaint where one spouse will say, well, it's hard to, I don't know, it's kind of, the things that I hear, it's complicated because it depends on the degree, right? If the person's playing video games all the time and refuses to interact, refuses to do chores, refuses to parent the kids, refuses to go out, refuses to run errands or, interact or stuff, anything, then yeah, that's pretty awful. Refuses to get a job or something. That's on one end of the spectrum. But in my anecdotal experience, most of the people with this problem, they are able to have a full-time job and be successful. They are able to do the chores, run errands, take care of their responsibilities. But as soon as they can, they end up playing video games. Now, on one hand, it's just another hobby like kayaking or reading a book or watching Netflix or something. And nothing wrong with that, of course. So sometimes it's seen that way. And I work with couples where they do have this phenomenon and it's not a problem. One of the members will play video games a lot of the time, but their spouse isn't bothered by it. But it can become annoying to the Roxannes of the world where they just feel like there's so many other things you could be doing. Why are you doing this? It's just kind of wasting your time. Now, is it actually wasting your time? No, not inherently. I mean, arguably everything, what I'm doing right now, what you're doing right now is, I guess, wasting time or something. Maybe there's some usefulness that we could identify, but we can do that with a lot of things. So, and particularly in the United States, I think we have this aversion to leisure. If you're not making money, like an example was for the first 8 years I was making this podcast and YouTube channel, I was losing money, not a lot, but some, and not making any money. And when I would tell people that I was making a podcast or I was still making the podcast, just imagine 8 years, day in and day out, people would be like, you're still making that thing? Why? I'd be like, yeah, I don't know. It's fun. It's creative. It's interesting. It gets me connected with people. It gets me thinking. It's a challenge. I think maybe one day it could make money. I don't know. Maybe a little bit of money. So I would get weird reactions from people. Not everyone, but many people. And the reason why they're reacting because they just thought like, well, you're spending all this time on something, it doesn't make money. What's the purpose? Or if you are wanting to be a musician or something and you don't intend on ever becoming big time or a professional or something, that people will be like, well, why are you doing it? Or if you become an artist and you start painting pictures, and there's this compulsion, either externally or internally, that the goal would be to sell your paintings. That's the goal. We're such a materialistic, capitalistic society. It's everything is for that god of money, instead of recognizing that there's a lot of other aspects to life that are a lot more worthy than the pursuing of money. And so there can be that conflict where, and we could imagine that Roxanne, given, the way that she talks, I didn't highlight this, but on the dating and whatnot, with other people, they even highlighted that she would repeat, "I have my own company, I have my own company, I have my own company." And yeah, good for her. That's great. But it's kind of a weird phrase. If I heard someone say that, I wouldn't know what that meant, because anyone can have a company. Anyone can just start a self-employment company, right? Or even a corporation like an S corp or something. Anyone can have a company. Is it successful? Is it fulfilling? Is it doing good for the world? Those are the questions, right? So, just having a company. But it sounds like maybe she is successful, but I think she's very oriented that way, which is fine. So let's just say that both Roxanne and Antonio are within normal limits, and they're not running from some fear in an excessive way, and that Roxanne is just oriented that way, and Antonio is oriented in this different way. And when Roxanne looks at him and is like, "Why are you doing this? Like, you should be ambitious, trying to, hustle and trying to start a business, or trying to, succeed at something." And it's hard to watch, right? And then for Antonio, he's just like, "Why are you constantly pushing yourself for ambition? Like, how about you stop and smell the roses? That's what I'm doing, Or maybe even Antonio plays video games with other people online, and it's a way of connecting. I just got done playing Baldur's Gate 3 with Umberto. We're obsessed with that game. It's a great game, if you like that sort of game. But, maybe it's just a clash. The other thing that I'll say that I didn't highlight is that Antonio, when he was talking with his new partner, Kat, he was talking about how Alex, this fella, is better than him in all the ways that Roxanne wants in a partner. Antonio seemed to be saying that, I don't know if it was low self-esteem, or I don't know, he was really worried that Roxanne would like Alex more than him, because Antonio was the guy who gave the ultimatum. He's the guy who plays video games. And it also sounds like in between these breakups that Roxanne would have other boyfriends, not just date other people. So maybe Antonio was affected by that. I don't know.
I always want to give him a chance. So I was like hoping he would change every time. And he's still not doing the things that I need and what I want. And then we break up again.
I would say that's why you leave him, not.
Oh, the thing I wanted to say about Antonio is, I don't know this, of course, and there's no signs of this, but I have treated people before who are depressed and or anxious, and or both, and they turn to video games as a way to gain some kind of satisfaction of production, right? That, because a lot of video games, as you succeed, it feels like you're being productive. It kind of, some video games particularly can really replace that feeling that you get when you do all your chores, or when you work out, or when you work at your job. Some video games are literally you're working at a job and earning paychecks, and so it can give people that satisfaction if they're feeling like they can't get it in their real life. That's not a problem unless it keeps people in the depression. Video games can be a way to help people get back on their feet, potentially, or even give people confidence, to actually do it in the real world, But usually, clinically, what I'm seeing is that someone is depressed, low self-esteem, that's the problem. And from the outside, it's like he's just playing video games all day, but the real problem is the depression or the low self-esteem. And if he wasn't depressed, or he had better self-esteem, he would still play video games often, but he would also be doing other things because he wants to do those other things, but he doesn't have the motivation or doesn't get pleasure from it or doesn't feel like he will succeed. So, I don't know. There was just kind of a vibe from Antonio that maybe in that direction, but it was very limited data along those lines.
Answer and Beach.
Yeah.
You have?
Uh-huh.
I haven't.
You haven't?
I have not.
Okay.
You have.
Yeah.
I'm shocked. So you are a little
Why?
wild. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think you're not a crazy wild guy.
No, I am.
I mean, it's not. I wonder what she means by crazy wild guy. It's a lot of things that people do. I'm not. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he hadn't. I wouldn't be surprised if he had. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I would. Given his profile, his age, and the way he talks about life, I mean, it doesn't really indicate what people do in the bed, but I would have given it like a 50-50 chance. Some people, it's often, for various reasons. So what's interesting is that she is so surprised by that. I wonder what associations she has with it. I don't know. I just figure I hear things from young people regarding attitudes about various things like this that indicate that it's a lot more commonplace than it was when I was young. So I'm surprised that she is that scandalized by the fact that he's done that. Plus, you can be a very conservative, introverted, anxious, non-sexual person and still have done that at some point in your past, so it's not some sort of indicator of personality or something. But anyway, they're having that just out of nowhere. She asked that question, seemingly.
Alex has all these qualities that I want and what I need. And I'm excited to see how it feels being with someone who has those qualities.
I'm pretty sure that's the editor trolling Roxanne because she's like, have you done anal? And he says, yeah. And then the next thing is, he has all the qualities of someone that I need. Yeah. Sometimes I imagine the editors are just kind of giggling as they're putting things together because, they could have done anything editing-wise at that point. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.